morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the second workshop in the Carbon Literacy and Climate Solution series, Empowering Climate Action in Tourism. Some of you may have joined us from the first workshop session, and some of you may be joining us from the very first time. If you're just joining us for the very first time, do not worry. The content from the first workshop is not a prerequisite to this workshop content. And if you're interested in diving a bit deeper into the first workshop, we will share a follow-up link to the workshop recording, and we'll touch upon some of the key highlights that we discussed. But for today's session specifically, we're going to be looking at specific actions and practices that both tourism operators and event planners can look at implementing in their operations. Thank you very much for joining us today, and let's get started. As we have done some introductions as well, thank you to everyone who has provided some introductions in the chat. If you have just joined us as well, please take the moment to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, which organization you're representing, and what brought you here today, or what are you particularly excited about learning. We are very excited for this session today and hope that you're just as excited in seeing just a diverse representation here from the Destination Greater Victoria Network and all the amazing organizations here that are taking action on climate change. Thank you very much, everyone, and let's get started. This presentation is made possible by Destination Greater Victoria and the Victoria Conference Centre, who have partnered to provide carbon literacy and climate awareness training for event agencies, meeting planners, and tourism operators in collaboration with Synergy Enterprises. Before we begin, I'd like to pass it over to Miranda G, Executive VP Sales and Business Development at Destination Greater Victoria, to share a few words. Miranda, over to you.
Thank you so much, Christian. Hello, everybody. Welcome today. My name is Miranda, and as Christian said, I'm the Executive Vice President here at Destination Greater Victoria and the Victoria Conference Centre with the Sales and Business Development team. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking your time to be with us today and to be part of this session. At the Conference Centre and the Destination Greater Victoria, we have great partners, and we really, truly value the importance of this topic and the learnings that are come along with it. Through the session, I'm sure you will learn lots about how you can bring that into your own business, and also learn a bit about how the Conference Centre incorporates this in everything that we do. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to learning with you.
Thank you very much, Miranda. And also, yes, thank you so much to you and your team for making this possible and making these conversations accessible to everyone to truly learn and grasp from not only what are some of those actions out there that are happening in the sustainability field, but also a great opportunity just to learn from everybody else here, because everyone here is an environmental leader, and there's just so much that we can learn from each other. So thank you, Miranda, and thank you to the Destination Greater Victoria and the Victoria Conference Centre team for making this possible. To kick us off, we'll start with a few round housekeeping notes. Please mute your microphone and help keep background noise to a minimum. We will have some engagement and some Q&A questions in between, but for the majority of the presentation where we'll be sharing some of the content, we ask that you please remain muted to keep background noise to a minimum. If you are experiencing any technical issues, please try logging out and try logging back in with the Zoom link provided. Feel free to use the chat box to ask and engage questions. My colleague, Kayla Klim, will be moderating the chat for any questions or insights that you would like to share. Lastly, I'd like to remind everyone that this presentation is being recorded. A copy of this video recording and presentation will also be shared with you as a follow-up to this session. But if you're not comfortable being recorded, you are welcome to keep your camera off. We would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting today on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Lekwungen peoples, today known as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. We're truly grateful to be able to live, work, and play on these lands, while also learning from our traditional hosts who have been stewards of these lands for generations. To kick things off with a brief introduction, I would like to introduce myself and my colleague who will be facilitating today's sessions. My name is Christian, and I'm a Senior Project Manager at Synergy Enterprises. And joining me today is Kayla Klim, Project Coordinator at Synergy. Synergy Enterprises, we believe that businesses have the responsibility and the opportunity to impact global change, empower climate action, and lead the world towards a regenerative and sustainable future for all. We work with leading organizations to mobilize climate action around the globe by helping them measure their carbon emissions, setting carbon reduction targets, creating decarbonization strategies to reduce their environmental impact, implementing solutions, and communicating results. Synergy has been very fortunate to work with many different organizations across the tourism sector, many of which are part of the Destination Greater Victoria Network. Some of these organizations you may recognize, including In a Laurel Point and Parkside as BC's first and second carbon neutral hotels, Big Will Burger as the first carbon neutral fast food restaurant in Canada, and Eagle Wing Tours offering carbon neutral whale watching expeditions since operations began in 2005. We also work with leading tourism organizations all across Canada, and a common theme across all of these organizations is that they are all climate leaders in their field, meaning that they go above and beyond what is required of them as a business to be a positive force for change. In case you were unable to attend the first workshop, or you're joining us for the very first time, we wanted to provide a brief overview of what we discussed in the first session. We began the discussion with an overview of what climate change is and what are some of the main drivers behind climate change, both on the natural activity drivers and the human activity drivers that cause climate change. We also shared a few key statistics that communicate the impact and opportunities that climate change can have on tourism, specifically how as a tourism operator, as an event planner, or just in general, you can look at adapting to a changing climate and traveler expectations. We shared some case studies that demonstrate how local Victoria-based organizations are taking positive steps towards climate action and embracing sustainability within their operations and decision-making. Finally, we covered a few key concepts related to how organizations can measure their environmental impact by measuring, reducing, and offsetting their carbon footprint. We went through some definitions relating to what is a carbon footprint? What does it mean for a business? And how can I, as an organization, measure the carbon impact of my operations? How do I achieve carbon neutrality? What is the difference between carbon neutrality and net zero? Many of these definitions we shared in that first workshop. If you're interested in diving deeper into these concepts, there is a recording available online for you to watch on your own time. We will share this in the chat if you are interested, so you can access that information. But as I mentioned earlier on, this information is not required or a prerequisite for this workshop, as we will be focusing more on tangible actions that you can lean on to embrace sustainability and enhance sustainability within your operations. Now we're going to jump right into the main content of our presentation today, which is understanding the sustainable practices and areas where tourism operators and event planners can make a positive impact and contribution to our planet. This section will be split into two parts. During the first part, we will dive into 6 sustainable practice areas to help you identify example actions that you could consider when implementing in your operations. We will share example actions for each of these 6 practice areas, including procurement and responsible sourcing, low carbon menus, energy efficiency, transport and accommodation, waste management and diversion, and water conservation. During the second part of this workshop, we will shift towards an interactive activity session where we will encourage everyone joining us today to share some example actions or some example goals from your organization or from your operations that you have implemented within the context of these 6 practice areas. So an opportunity to learn from each other as to, okay, after we have looked at these example actions for each of these 6 practice areas, how is each organization, how is each individual here championing some of these actions within their own organizations as well? The first area that we'll be looking at involves procurement and responsible sourcing. When planning events or running day-to-day business operations, there are many decisions to be made around procurement and how this can be done in a responsible way that minimizes your impact on the environment. In general, you may consider developing responsible purchasing guidelines as a first step to make selecting vendors, purchase goods and services as efficient and consistent as possible of a process. What are you currently purchasing? Who are you purchasing from? Are there any eco-friendly or sustainable alternatives offered by your current vendors and suppliers? These are some questions that could be considered as you create clear guidelines that you could then use to communicate to your team and to your suppliers. For tourism operators, for example, you could consider purchasing products made from recycled materials. This could look at your brochures, menus, any printed materials that are being shared with your team or your staff, copy paper, paper products like toilet paper and paper towels. Purchasing products made from recycled materials not only helps to reduce the demand of virgin resources, it also helps save the amount of trees from being cut down towards creating new paper and keeping that in circulation as well. You could also consider supporting locally made or produced products to support local communities and reduce the carbon footprint of transportation. Choosing to support local means that you're choosing to purchase products that will be delivered at a much shorter distance than purchasing from overseas, which will have a much larger carbon impact. Vetting and prioritizing suppliers who pay fair wages, provide safe working conditions, and have a commitment to sustainability as well as social and human rights. So taking a deeper look into who are you currently working with, who are you currently buying from, do they have standards or guidelines, or do their values align with your values as it relates to making responsible purchasing decisions? Buying in bulk to help reduce the amount of packaging and emissions required for deliveries. You could also consider potentially working with your current vendors and suppliers to see if they have any packaging that is reusable or biodegradable to reduce the amount of plastic waste as well. As another example, uplifting underrepresented groups by purchasing from minority, women-owned, or indigenous suppliers wherever possible, so we can support those communities as well. For event planners, for example, when deciding on your vendors and sourcing your event swag or speaker gifts, ask yourself as well if there are any sustainable alternatives you could choose from. For example, when sourcing speaker gifts that have possible social impact by supporting local or indigenous-owned businesses, or potentially sourcing green items that are high in recycled content, are either compostable or recyclable, are reusable, local, green certified, looking at those gifts or swag items that rather than being single-use disposable items, how can they be more preserved and make a more meaningful contribution to the delegates? You could also consider setting up a lanyard library where guests can return branded lanyards at the end of the event to be washed, reused, and help reduce waste from purchasing new lanyards. Consider renting or borrowing event decor so that the new decor is not purchased and potentially wasted. And lastly, minimizing the amount of swag purchased for the event to roughly 1 to 2 items per delegate and making it a useful item that will not get thrown away into the landfill right away. Again, going back to that ethos of can these items be green, locally available, locally sourced, made out of recycled materials, compostable, recyclable, or reusable? Another area that can have a significant impact on the total emissions of an event or the operations of your business involves the food that is being served. Emissions from food production account for roughly 1/3 of human-caused greenhouse gas emissions. When sourcing low emissions food, consider the food type, production practices, and packaging. Food type will be the easiest to target when planning an event and can also be particularly relevant if you are an accommodation or a restaurant. Emissions from animal-based products are much higher than from plant-based protein farming. Therefore, choosing plant-based proteins for your menus is the most effective way to reduce the emissions from your food. You could start by swapping red meat for plant-based proteins. If this is not possible, switching from red meat to lower carbon alternatives like chicken, salmon, and pork. Additionally, consider serving plated meals over buffets, as plated meals have 30% less emissions on average due to reduced food waste in comparison to buffets. There are a high degree of emission impact variations between meals, but in general, red meat has higher emissions than plant-based proteins. The 4VI Carbon Footprint of Food Guide is a great resource for more information about the carbon impact of food, which Kayla will also share in the chat if you're interested in diving deeper into what all of this entails. At a very high level, as you can see here, a plate of steak and potatoes has an emissions impact of 5.8 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent, while lentil dal and rice only has an impact of 0.8 kilograms of carbon dioxide. You can work with your venue or catering team to design menus that are low carbon and focus more on plant-based proteins. And while being more environmentally friendly, these menus can also save you money as plant-based proteins tend to be cheaper than red meats or seafood. These are 2 examples where the carbon footprint of food has been communicated, one related to conference delegates and one related to accommodation guests. For the Impact Sustainability Tourism and Travel Conference, as on the left as an example, The event planning team made careful decisions around the meals served for their breakfast and lunch menu items. One option was to go fully vegetarian, which would have the lowest carbon impact, or roughly 7.3 tons of carbon. Another option was to go for lower carbon options, such as chicken, salmon, and pork, roughly at a carbon impact of 8.3 tons of carbon, or high carbon options, such as red meats, which would have the highest carbon impact at 13.5 tons of carbon, nearly double that of the vegetarian options. By planning in advance and selecting meals that blended both the vegetarian and the low carbon options, the event planning team was able to communicate to its delegates how the impact of their decisions led to meals with lower carbon emissions, while also educating delegates about the impact of food choices on the environment. In that little point on the right is another example as a hotel with a restaurant that caters food not only for the guests, but also for conferences, weddings, and other special events as well. Their menus emphasize the availability of low carbon meals while also communicating their decisions to source locally and ethically harvested ingredients. This is not only a helpful communication tool towards guests, staff, and event planning education, it is also a reflection of the responsible sourcing guidelines in selecting food products with lower impact as well. The next area we will explore involves energy efficiency. How can you use less energy to achieve the same level of output while at the same time minimizing cost and reducing carbon emissions? For tourism operators, tracking your energy consumption and conducting regular energy audits can be a beneficial first step in establishing a baseline, identifying target areas of your operations with significant energy consumption, and setting carbon reduction reduction goals, targets, and actions to help you address those high target areas. Once you have a baseline understanding, you could consider a number of actions to improve energy efficiency that are relevant to your operations. The most common actions that we see include regular equipment maintenance, whether it be your refrigeration units, your hot water tanks, boats, vehicles, or any other equipment that you operate. Ensuring that that equipment operates as efficiently as possible can contribute to energy savings without the need to fully transition to new equipment as a short-term solution. Upgrades to energy-efficient LED lighting can also go a long way towards reducing your energy usage, particularly in hotels and facilities where lighting can typically accounts for a significant portion of energy consumption. Lastly, investing in renewable energy sources, such as solar panels, which can provide long-term clean energy solutions and further reduce the carbon emissions of the energy used in day-to-day operations. As an example, Parkside Hotel here in Victoria, who is starting to look at implementing solar as an alternative to reduce the amount of energy consumption from the grid and be more self-sufficient as well, while also reducing the amount of carbon from the energy that they use as well. For event planners, the energy efficiency of an event can be a bit more difficult as it is under the control of the selected venue. Therefore, choosing your venue wisely is an important first step. Look for venues that are sustainably certified, such as BOMA, Green Key, or carbon neutral, or any other certifications that demonstrate that they already have energy efficiency practices in place, are tracking their energy consumption, and are taking steps to make sure that their operations are as low impact as possible. An example here in Victoria is the Victoria Conference Centre, who is a BOMA certified facility that operates at a platinum level and is carbon neutral, meaning that they are operating at the highest level of efficiency possible while making sure that their operations are as low carbon as possible at the same time. You could also consider working with your venue to track the energy consumption for your specific event. You could then use these metrics to, for example, purchase offsets to make your event carbon neutral, or using those metrics to help communicate to your delegates or staff or stakeholders with how you're taking action towards making sure that you understand what's the impact of your event. You may also consider forming renewable energy partnerships with companies such as Bullfrog Power that will purchase renewable energy credits on the event's behalf and power the event using clean energy through various sources such as solar, wind, or geothermal. Many different solutions out there, and many resources that could be leveraged as well, both the tourism operator and the event planning side as it relates to energy efficiency. Transportation and accommodation is another area of consideration for both business operations and event planning as well. These sections can be fairly applicable to both operators and event planners. For tourism operators, encouraging your team to use low emissions transport where possible, including walking, biking, busing, or even carpooling as well. Could you consider ways of creating programs to incentivize shared carpooling for staff members that live within a similar radius and travel together to your workplace? Providing bike parking or transit passes to incentivize low emission transport methods. Tracking and offsetting travel emissions. How many flights are you taking? How many ferries are you taking for any business travel or conferences that you're attending? If you are looking to become a carbon neutral organization, this can become particularly relevant with tracking how much travel your team takes to attend business events, or to simply offset the impact of business travel as a communications tool. Booking zero emission coaches or taxis where possible. And when selecting accommodations for your team, choosing accommodations that are either carbon neutral, green key, or Biosphere certified, as these certifications demonstrate that these organizations are going above and beyond their sustainability practices. For event planners, more on the delegate side of things, encouraging delegates to use low emissions transport to come to the event or when visiting the area, ensuring that the venue has adequate and accessible bike parking, and perhaps considering providing transit passes with event tickets. Tracking and offsetting travel emissions by surveying delegates and staff about where they're traveling from and how, whether it be through flights, ferries, or trains. Also a great tool in order to make your event carbon neutral, or having metrics to be able to communicate to your delegates or to your stakeholders. If you are providing delegate transportation to and from the venue, consider booking zero emission electric coaches or taxis if there are any available within the community that you operate in, as well as providing sustainable accommodation partners to delegates and staff. Look for hotels that are carbon neutral, have 5 green keys, or are Biosphere certified, and really dive deep into what are these accommodations doing to ensure that they're operating as sustainably as possible. There are also many areas where you can improve your waste management and waste diversion, ensuring that less waste is being sent to the landfill and more is either recycled, composted, or donated. A zero waste business or a zero waste event reduces waste and diverse recyclable and compostable materials from the landfill up to a minimum of a 90% plus diversion rate. Some waste reduction actions include conducting regular waste audits to get a better understanding of your waste diversion rate, particularly in high traffic areas where there may be a significant volume of landfill waste, and help you identify opportunities for reduction. Displaying appropriate waste sorting signage and ensuring that there are adequate recyclable, organics, and landfill waste streams available, particularly in those high traffic areas where you've identified a significant amount of landfill volume, making that more accessible to your staff, to your delegates. Implementing a no single-use water bottle policy and encouraging staff and event delegates to bring their own reusable bottles. Including waste management expectations in supplier or vendor agreements as well. Really look at fostering transparent communications around your waste management practices, your waste diversion goals, and also help incentivize the vendors and suppliers that you work with their own waste management practices, and really make it a collaborative partnership where you both work together towards a common goal. Limiting single-use items and choosing compostable or recyclable products where possible. For operators, this could include your office supplies, cutlery, single-use bottles and coffee cups. For event planners, this could consider event swag and speaker gifts. Really taking a look at what are those single-use items potentially within your operations, and what are some alternatives out there that could be recyclable, composted, or reusable. Lastly, forming food waste partnerships with community-based organizations, or if you're an event planner, checking in with your venue to see if they partnered with any local organizations to provide extra food to individuals in the community that are in need, and reducing food waste as well. And the final practice area, which we'll be looking at, involves water conservation, water being the most valuable human resource. For tourism operators, conducting regular water audits can also help a business identify areas of high water usage, any potential leaks and inefficiencies, and opportunities for reducing consumption. Installing water efficient or low flow fixtures and appliances can also go a long way towards reducing your water consumption while also saving on costs. This could include low flow faucets, shower heads, toilets, washing machines, dishwashers, and any other equipment that is particularly relevant in your facility and particularly consumes a significant amount of water. Lastly, implementing guest and staff awareness programs to promote responsible water practices. These policies or programs can include towel and linen reuse programs, turning off faucets when not in use, and reporting any leaks promptly to management to ensure that water is being conserved as much as possible, and that you engage your staff and your guests on this journey of conserving water. For event planners, water can also be difficult to control as it is primarily provided by the venue. So again, try and work with venues that are sustainably certified and that will have taken water conservation and efficiency into consideration. Green Key, Biosphere, BOMA certified facilities, they all tend to have some practices, not only with relation to energy management, waste management, also water conservation being a top priority as well. Providing water stations to delegates, roughly 2 for every 500 delegates, and displaying appropriate signage so delegates can easily find those stations as well. And encouraging delegates to bring reusable water bottles and implementing a no plastic water bottle policy to reduce not only the amount of waste, but also encourage delegates to use those reusable water stations and their own bottles as well. As we look at closing up the presentation today, and just with us being almost 10 minutes to time, we wanted to just analyze this with touching upon the aspects of marketing and communicating your sustainability efforts, which is an important part of operating as a sustainable business or hosting a sustainable event, making sure that all staff and delegates are aware of the steps that you are taking. Focus on communicating your sustainability values, starting with your values first, your actions, your goals, your results. How could you start adding some of this messaging into your website, social media channels, newsletters, blogs, internal team communications as well, really leaning on why you're taking action through this in the first place as relates to your mission, your vision statement, and your values, and making that transparent and consistent throughout all of your communications. As an event planner, considering ways of incorporating this messaging into your program content, perhaps through a short announcement by the MC on the actions that you are taking very early stages, or perhaps by going digital and using an event tab, which can not only save on paper, but also provides a great opportunity for delegate interaction and feedback, and really leaning on how can that information from delegates help inform future decision-making as well. Including your sustainability practices in supplier and vendor agreements or staff and delegate communications, making that transparent and clear throughout. And if you are conducting a post-event survey or a guest survey as well, consider adding a few questions or areas for delegates or guests to comment on the sustainable practices that you are engaging with and providing some sort of feedback as well. This can help you inform your strategies moving forward and any other areas of consideration as well, not only with your staff and your delegates, but also with your team, as they provide lots of great information as well, and they're a huge resource in identifying those target areas. There are many examples out there of organizations, facilities, events, and event planners that are doing a fantastic job at communicating their sustainability messaging. An example, the Victoria Conference Center, which does an excellent job of communicating their sustainability initiatives on their website, so that event planners are aware that the venue that they are choosing to work with has strong environmental values and that they're working hard to make their events lower impact. This can also apply to your own organizations and ensuring that the people the guests that come visit your organization, the delegates that come visit your event, that they're all aware of what are those actions that you're taking, and also making sure that they feel good about supporting your business and supporting your event as well. Again, leading with your values first in order to communicate your sustainability journey and results to the world.